Chapter 9. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." Isaiah 30:21. When Capkin finishes his sad story, we both just sit quietly in the deepening darkness. Finally, I break the silence. Dolphins have really impacted my life too, I confess, particularly during two times when my life was about to change drastically. Capkin sits up, attentive, prodding me to continue with his silence. It was almost like dolphins were bookends to the most tragic part of my life. For an instant, I feel a shudder race down my spine as I recapture the mixed emotional memories of incredible wonder and great personal anguish that blend and run together into the individual threads that make up this piece of fabric from my life. My first true dolphin encounter occurred just as my life was unexpectedly changing for the worst. I paused and have to reconsider. Actually, my life was already on a serious downward spiral, but now my bad decisions were shoving me toward a dark chasm. I was on the verge of falling into a living nightmare. It is now completely dark on the bow of Alcyon. I feel the wind blowing a little colder out of the darkness. I can no longer see Capkin sitting right next to me. The story just pours forth. Capkin is completely silent. I could have been talking to myself. Maybe in a sense I was. The thought pictures I capture from the recesses of my brain are distant and crisp, like it all happened just yesterday, when actually the two events cover a period of almost 3 years. The dolphins were gray bottlenoses, and they came upon me suddenly. At the time, I thought my life had finally taken a wonderful turn for the better, but it was actually a nightmare that was lurking in my future. Sam, my best friend, and I were surfing at Black's Beach, just north of San Diego in Southern California. It was a cold winter day in 1982. The breakers were thick and powerful, with a brisk offshore wind forcing the thundering waves nearly vertically before they pitched into long curling tubes of crystal clear water. The surf didn't get much better than this, with the waves standing over 2 stories tall. Surfing in these almost perfect conditions, it seemed odd that I was preparing to leave the ocean I loved to go live in the bleakness of the Mojave Desert. Rather than become depressed about it, I paddled closer to Sam and poured cold water down the back of his wetsuit. Sam and I are engaged in a fierce splashing fight when we notice a big swell rushing in on the horizon. We both quickly jockey for position. Sam sets up for the first wave and, paddling furiously, drops into an excellent left. I let the next two waves pass in favor of the set wave rushing toward the shoreline. As usual, this break is crowded with surfers, but a longshore current places me in the most favorable position. It is a very satisfying feeling knowing that no one would come between me and this perfect wave. The swell of the wave heightens, forming itself into a classic California breaker. The wave crest begins to pitch at the center as I line up for a fast barreling left. Since I'm right-footed, this wave is considered backside for me. I look forward to the challenge of the drop as I begin paddling furiously down the face of the nearly vertical wave. I feel the breaker going critical as my board begins the long drop, sliding forward, rapidly gathering speed. One more stroke will launch me into the wave when two dolphins boldly surface on each side of the board. I'm completely astounded. My arm plunging down for the water freezes in midair. Had I completed the stroke, my hand would have come down on the glistening wet back of a dolphin. I see the slick gray skin just inches from my face, and the dolphin's eager look as it surges forward down the pitching wave face. As my surfboard stalls at the top of the breaker, I see the dolphin racing down a cascading wall of water. Then the curl hits me. An avalanche of water sledgehammers me into the board as I fall 2 vertical stories toward a mighty impact with the bottom. When I finally surface, choking and spitting water, I hear Sam gurgling uproariously. Caught on the inside, I'm hit by another wave and washed farther towards the beach, where the longshore current is plaguing the other surfers. That is plaguing the other surfers catches me. Faced with a long paddle back out, I decide it's time to head for the beach. Sam, riding the froth of the tiny inshore wave, joins me, and we laugh together as we carry our boards up onto the white sandy beach. Doesn't sound like much of a nightmare to me, Captain injects from the darkness. I wouldn't surf again for almost 3 years, I reply sadly. I left that afternoon for the high desert to work for a man called Morgan Hetrick. I once looked up to him like a father figure. He hired me as a pilot, and I was real excited about the adventure of flying for a living. Then I realized that Morgan had changed. There was a corruptness about him now. I feel an inner quiver as my mind recalls the exact moment that I slid over the edge into the nightmare. Despite the corruption, I still chose to work for him. It was a really bad choice because he had secretly become a drug smuggler. I unexpectedly got caught up in something that was way over my head, something really evil. Do not envy wicked men. Do not desire their company, for their hearts plot violence, and their lips talk about making trouble. Proverbs 24:1. What happened? Urges Capkin. A couple months later, I was saved by being arrested. My shrug goes unnoticed in the dark that surrounds us. I served almost 3 years in prison. The worst part is that it was my own fault. I look at my friend shrouded in the night. It wasn't so much that I was manipulated by someone who once was a friend. The important part was he knew he could manipulate me before he tried. I now know that life is always about choices. Good choices lift us up, and bad choices pull us down. I can sense Capkin mulling over my thoughts. He, like everyone else on Alcyon, knows that I had served time in a federal prison for that mistake. You said that dolphins were bookends to this part of your life, Capkin asked, seeking the rest of the story. I served the last part of my sentence at a prison camp in the Mojave Desert. As I continued, it's almost as if I'm reliving the memory. It was early fall in 1985. I was waiting at the camp barrier for Sam. I was about to go out on my first furlough. What? Capkin is shocked. You got to go on a furlough from prison? Yeah. The program is reserved for low-risk, nonviolent offenders. It helps inmates to readjust back to society. Anyway, I was pretty excited. Sam and I were going to go surfing. I can tell the captain wants to ask more questions. Instead, he waits as I feel myself drifting back, rummaging around in memories now almost a decade old. Standing in the cold desert air, I stare anxiously at the distant highway. I look at my watch for the 15th time in probably 10 minutes. Then I see him coming. Sam's Volkswagen Baja Bug is speeding up the highway with 2 surfboards strapped to the roof. The off-road modified car soon pulls into the camp parking lot. Sam gets out and waves, then heads for the control booth to sign me out. I feel like a puppy in a pet store, anxiously awaiting its release from captivity. After a few minutes, the guard motions me through the barrier. Climbing into the Volkswagen with Sam, I watch him look over and grin. Then he casually asked, "You ready to go surfing?" Such a simple statement, yet the meaning is incredibly momentous. It reflects the huge gulf that exists in our individual realities. Sam's life is about freedom. Mine is about confinement. He gets to be himself. I live the bizarre reality of an inmate. Yet for the next 36 hours, I will get a short chance to taste freedom again. Though I desperately want to leave the inmate part of me behind, it tags along because it is a living part of who I am. As the Volkswagen speeds toward the ocean over 4 hours away, I look at my young friend in the surrounding world that is not a part of my inmate existence. He occasionally glances out the window and sees mostly barren desert. I see changing scenery, a feast of new sights. In prison, I mostly see the same thing, day in and day out. There are a few colors to capture your attention in a prison camp. Most inmates and guards wear drab clothes. Inmate excitement usually consists of a small change to a normal, never-changing weekly meal menu. The Baja bug climbs a ridge and leaves the high desert to drop down into a wide rural valley. I feel freedom like a living wild thing that rushes through the open window with the wind of our passage. I know now that being free is a dynamic force that motivates and drives the gears of vitality, making life fun, challenging, and adventurous. Later, when we get caught in downtown traffic, Sam quickly becomes bored, but I am vitally alive. Everywhere I look, everything is interesting, dynamic, and changing. When we arrive at the beach, I am thrilled to see the ocean that I love and have missed so dearly. Quickly pulling on wetsuits and waxing up our surfboards, we run across the sand and out into the water. It was incredible to feel the ocean in motion, surf lapping at my feet and pulling me out into the frigid water. As we paddle out into the surf, I revel in the first roller of that washes over me in my surfboard. In the lineup, I quickly paddle for a medium-sized wave, feeling the exciting downward rush of the surfboard, then the wonder to be riding a tumbling cascade of falling water. I catch wave after wave, the clean, sparkling water washing away the pain and prison stress from my mind and soul. I surf to the point of near physical exhaustion, cold, completely worn out. I'm reluctant to let this moment end. Finally, teeth chattering and thinking I could stay no longer, a magical moment begins to unfold. A pod of bottlenose dolphins swims in to shear the waves. Taking a deep breath of air, I dive off the board to swim underwater. I see the dolphins rushing by me in the low visibility water. The permanent smile they wear registers in my mind. I hear their cheerful clicks and whistles like playground children, happily chattering. Then slowly the sounds become fainter with the last passing wave of the set. Cold, holding my breath, I fight to stay underwater, listening for the slightest hint that the dolphins are near or are coming back. But they are gone. In the underwater twilight, the magic moment finally surrenders itself to the lonely reality that this is my prison existence. I am an inmate, living a false fantasy. Prison waits to fold its cold arms around me, and these short moments away are like a rapidly ending dream. Alone, I feel very lost, adrift on a relentless tide that I know will return me too soon to a prison in the high desert. When you get into the gutter, you get covered with trash, because that is where the trash flows. On the mountaintops is where the sky and birds are, and you can take yourself there. J. California Cooper. Then what happened? Implores Capkin. After the most incredible 36 hours of my life, I had to go back to the prison camp. Sam couldn't take me, so I rode a bus. I remember that terrible forlornness that seemed to capture me. I was descending into a deep depression the closer the bus got to Boron prison camp. In the late afternoon, the bus dropped me off on the desert highway. Then I began to walk about a mile up the camp's access road. I felt so doomed going back to that horrible reality. It must have been really hard to return to prison. Capkin voices softly. Yeah, but walking up that road, I knew that all of it was a result of my own bad choices. Looking at the remnants of the sunset in the desert beyond the camp, I realized that the prison stay was almost over. In that not too distant future, the sun would rise with me finally walking out that prison gate for good. Locked away for 3 long years. Capkin stands and paces to the rail. How did you get through it without going absolutely crazy? It wasn't easy, but prison taught me the wonder of freedom, the importance of making good decisions, and that Jesus Christ is always there for us. You see, I may have felt lost, but I was never really alone because he was with me. Captain looks up and regards the heavens. Beautiful out here tonight, isn't it? I look up into the brilliant host of starlight that is heaven's gate. The wonder, I say to myself, is that God in all his beauty loves us no matter who we are, no matter what we've done. In life, we make a mistake. If we make a mistake, it doesn't mean we are a mistake. The fruit of righteousness will be peace. The effect of righteousness will be the quietness and confidence forever. Isaiah 32:17.